Welcome to Forthright, the podcast where we break stigmas through casual conversations. My name is Clare and I am your host. Hey guys, I am so excited to bring you the first episode of my podcast. This is something that has been in the works for such a long time and I can't believe that I'm finally bringing my dream into the world. I basically just wanted to do this podcast because I feel like I always have so much to say. I love talking. I want to use my platform just to talk about important things and things that matter, and mainly just mental health and breaking stigmas and making people feel more open and easy to talking about harder types of things. So on this podcast, we will be breaking stigmas for everything and all things mental health, body image, chronic illness, neurodivergency, sex, money, and everything in between. And if you know me, you know that I am already very open about talking about these types of topics. I'm very candid about it as well and casual. And yeah, you might say that I'm a forthright person. And I do consider myself a very open book, and I do realize that it is something that a lot of people might feel ashamed about or feel like they need to hide. And I just strongly believe that life is just so much easier if you're able to talk about what you're going through. So I kind of just hope that from hearing me talking about the hard stuff, you will feel a little less alone with whatever you might be going through and get the courage to talk about it yourself. And I've never really been one to take anything in life too seriously. I feel like I'm a very sarcastic person and I love some self-deprecating humor. So this podcast is pretty much just going to be talking about deep things, but in a very casual and hopefully comfortable way. I also want to talk about other things that are just normally deemed taboo or things you wish people were more forthright about. So money, sex, medication, health problems, all those types of things. I basically just want these episodes to feel like you're chatting with your bestie. And for the first episode today, I kind of just want to give an overview as to who I am and a brief outline of my mental health journey. And I'll touch on a few topics and subjects that I will dive deeper into in further episodes. So let's kick things off. So I am 27 years old and I'm from Cronulla in Sydney, my absolute favorite place in the whole wide world. I just cannot imagine living anywhere but here. And I currently live alone with my little Chihuahua Remy. And if you follow me on Instagram, you will know what an icon he is. I am just so obsessed with him. He's just such a little character with a big personality. And I am such a foodie. I have the biggest sweet tooth, and I love that I've made an online Instagram community where I share my recipes and love of sweet treats. Another fact about me, and for lack of a better term, is I am a self-proclaimed rock girl. I just love rock music. I love going to concerts, going to gigs, being in a mosh pit. I just love loud, heavy, and angry music. And if you know me, you'll know that after Remy and food, the other loves of my life are the bands Blink-182 and Trophy Eyes. I have tattoos for both of them as well. They just mean so much to me and have helped me through so much. I just find music to be just such a safe space and an escape. It always has been. Music has just always meant so much to me, and I think will always be a part of my life. I also love The Office, the US TV show. And I can honestly say, like, hand on my heart, I think that I'm the biggest Office fan in the world. And I know that that is a big call because it is like an insanely popular show, one of the most popular shows in the world. But I actually think I've seen the whole series at least 30 times through. And there would be, some episodes that I've seen more than that. Like, just I watch it on a loop. So when I finish it, I start it again. And I've been doing that for over 10 years. I'm just, obsessed. It is just the best show. If you haven't watched it, you need to. So that is just a little personal introduction to me. And now I want to touch on my mental health journey and what I've been through that's gotten me to where I am today. So I have had anxiety for pretty much my whole life. Ever since I was a toddler, I have been just a massive worrier. I couldn't actually leave the house without vomiting for many years. I have so many vivid memories of me as a toddler just going out, being in public places and throwing up. And I have never really been ashamed of or hidden my anxiety. And I think honestly, it is just part of my personality. I've always been one to say what is on my mind and stand up and advocate for myself. And I think this aspect of my personality has really helped me throughout my mental health journey. So, even though I've always had anxiety and been a worrier, my real mental health journey started in 2017 when I was diagnosed with and then hospitalized for my eating disorder. And I started off seeing a psychologist in early 2017 for my anxiety and then was diagnosed with an eating disorder. And I'll go more in depth of what triggered my eating disorder in a future episode because it did come on very severely, very quickly. It is something that I'd been living with on a milder level for a few years, but it got really bad in early 2017, which resulted in me being hospitalized for 6 weeks. And I was actually told that I wouldn't make it to my 21st birthday, which was really hard to hear, as I'm sure you can imagine. And I'm actually recording this episode not too long after my 27th birthday. So that is just such a win for me. And it goes to show that recovery really is possible. So going back to 2017, when I came out of hospital and started my recovery journey, I was so open about it straight off the bat. I had actually posted on my personal Facebook page a photo of me in hospital and basically just said, this is what I've been going through. And I've always known that it's something that so many people go through, but in my personal life, no one talked about it. I never knew of or saw anyone talking about it, which I just think is not right, and it makes it so much harder to recover, thinking you're doing it on your own or being ashamed about it. And yeah, so I did this post on my Facebook page, and I also did a series of videos on my YouTube channel, which I think at the time I only had a couple of hundred followers. And I basically just made videos talking about my experience, about recovery, what it was like being in hospital, just because it was such an intense experience. And as I said, I just wanted to help others. Even if it was one person who watched my YouTube videos, I basically just wanted to get conversations started in any way that I could. I was also really open about my recovery on my Instagram page as well, but it wasn't really until 2019 that I gained a following outside of my friends and family. And going now to my Instagram journey and how I used sharing my mental health story to becoming a content creator. As I mentioned earlier, am a foodie. I always have been a foodie. And my Instagram before it was my job was always filled with food, much as it is now. And I was just always the type of person at a cafe that had to take photos of food before anyone else could start eating. It was always just the camera eats first. And that sort of all did come to a stop during my eating disorder times when I had a really bad relationship with food. I just stopped eating any food for pleasure and enjoyment and all that. And I'm just seriously so glad that I was able to heal my relationship with food and have fallen in love with food all over again. But yeah, so it was probably mid to late 2019 when I started making my own recipes and sharing them on Instagram. And that just literally out of the blue started drawing people who didn't know me to my account, and people started following me, and then brands started following me, and then brands started reaching out and wanted to send me products. And that was just so amazing. And in the early days of my account and growing a following, I did lots of gifted and contra collaborations, which is where a brand will send me products in exchange for a post. I remember getting my first few PR packages and things in the mail and how exciting that was at the time. And I mean, it is still so exciting now, and I'm still so grateful, but those early days, it just was so surreal. And it was in probably, I think, 2020 that I started doing infrequent paid collaborations. I actually remember my first paid brand deal was for $50, which was just mind blowing to me at the time. I think I would have maybe only had around 2,000 followers as well. But the idea that someone not only wanted to send me products, but were going to pay me $50, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is so insane. And I just still remember that first collaboration so vividly, and just that moment of being so excited because it just felt so validating and legitimate. Being gifted products from brands and then sometimes even getting paid by them. As I said, it was so validating that I was doing good things and making good things. And I struggled then, and I still do a little bit now, with imposter syndrome. So I guess the fact that brands wanted to work with me and invest in me, it really did tell me that I was doing something right and boosted my confidence. So I just kind of kept doing that, and my page kept growing as I posted consistently, and I was sharing mostly recipes at the time, but I was also still going through recovery. So I did also share about that and be really open about my eating disorder, recovery, and my journey to healing my relationship with food. I also talked about other mental health issues that I was going through, such as anxiety and depression. And I kind of just used my Instagram page essentially as my diary. And just by sharing recipes and honestly just showing up as myself, I gained such an amazing following, which leads me to now where I've been able to do it as my full-time job. And that still blows my mind. I actually still can't believe it. I'm so grateful and so blessed to have this community that I have built. And now most of my content, I still post a lot of food content, but it's probably half between food and personal content and Remy content, of course. And even though I have recovered from my eating disorder, I still want to share about rejecting diet culture and how important it is just to have a healthy relationship with food and how good it is to find food freedom. And I still share and possibly overshare at times about my anxiety and depression struggles. But I find that whenever I share about these topics, I get so many messages from people just appreciating my openness and me being forthright. And people message me saying how it makes them feel less alone. And they thought they were the only ones going through what they're going through. And I also get people say they feel like they can talk about these things more openly in their own lives after hearing me be so open and just casual about my own experiences. And that really just means so much to me. And the reason I wanted to start this podcast, just to extend these conversations to open dialogue and just to end the stigma. I don't know, I just hate to think of people struggling alone. And I know so many people are struggling alone. And I guess I've always just been so lucky to have such a strong and understanding and supportive team of family and doctors and all that around me. And I know that is unfortunately not the case for everyone. You may feel alone, but I promise you, you never are. There are people out there that want to help you, want to support you. And I know that you might not believe it, but I promise you there is at least one person out there that will be there to help and support you through whatever you might be going through. So I have been in and out of therapy for the last 7 years, and I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with therapy, but I do think that overall therapy has been really, really helpful for me at times. Now, I hate labels in so many different contexts, but I think for me, when it comes to labeling my mental health, or I guess receiving an official diagnosis, that has been helpful to an extent. I don't know, I struggle to navigate how I feel about putting a label on mental health diagnosis, because to me, labels feel very permanent, and I personally don't think mental health is always a permanent thing. I mean, I've been diagnosed with anxiety, but I hope to not have anxiety forever. But that being said, I am such a warrior, and I think I will always live with some level of anxiety. But I mean, I've also been diagnosed with depression, and I sure as hell don't want to be depressed forever. And I've also been diagnosed with OCD and BPD. And I think even now, that's something I still struggle to fully understand and manage. And it was actually just over a year ago that I got diagnosed with autism, which was a shock, but also not a shock at the same time. My therapist literally just mentioned it out of the blue on my first session with her, and she kind of just asked if I'd ever been tested for it before, and I said no. So I went through and did all the testing, and yeah, found out that I have autism, which I feel like that just makes so many things make sense to me now. And I'm honestly really surprised looking back that it was never picked up on or mentioned in my many, many years of therapy prior. So going back to labels, I feel like for me, I guess with my autism label / diagnosis, that was having a label for that was really validating things that I've been thinking or feeling my whole life. And it's almost, I don't know, it's like a relief to know that I'm not making these things up or imagining whatever I've been dealing with and living with and just experiencing. That being said, though, I don't define myself by my diagnosis. I feel like I have autism. I live with autism, but I wouldn't say that I'm autistic because, I mean, yeah, I guess technically I am, but it's a label, and there's so much more to me than that. And I feel like putting a label on it just boxes me into a hole and makes it harder to break out of. So yeah, that's where I think labels can be dangerous if we let them define us and prevent us from adapting and growing and changing. And it's not just labels when it comes to mental health and diagnoses, it's also like for things with labels when it comes to, I don't know, like sexuality or your diet. It's just, I feel like it can be really like a bit of a setback. And as I said, stops you from adapting from that because it just can be very permanent and stuck, which we're all, I mean, as humans, we are so dynamic. We're always growing and changing and learning new things. So I think, yeah, labels can be validating, but I don't think we should let them define us. And while we're talking about diagnoses, I have also been diagnosed with osteoporosis and premature menopause as a result of my eating disorder, which I will talk about all that in a future episode. Just, I guess, wanted to plant that in there while I am going through everything that I've been diagnosed with. So basically, I'm just living as a bit of a mess and navigating my mental illnesses and sharing my deepest, darkest thoughts with the world. And I'm really, really looking forward into diving into topics and discussing things in a different way, or just talking openly about things that people normally hide. And I don't know, I just really hope that this podcast will be insightful, helpful, entertaining, and just somewhere that you can consider a safe space. So before I sign off today, I want to introduce a little mini segment that I'm going to end each episode with for just a bit of fun, and that is Hannah's Hot Tips. So I basically am just going to share a hot tip, a hack, a recommendation, or basically just anything I want to share that I'll just spin it to be classed as a hot tip just because I love the alliteration. So our first hot tip for our first episode today, I wanted to tell you about a little thing called a library. Now, I don't want to sound condescending in saying this because I genuinely think so many people don't know about libraries. So something about me, I'm a massive reader, a massive bookworm. I just, love reading. I last year read over 100 books, which is just, I know it's a flex, but I love reading, and I often share on Instagram my current reads, things that I'm reading and all that. And people message me and they say like, where do you keep all these books, or how do you afford to read so many books and all that? And that actually just surprises me because I've just always grown up with the library, and I don't know how it works in other countries, but in Australia, I feel like it's something that feels like it should be illegal because it's all like government and council funded and all that. I don't properly understand how they can do it for free, but basically it's like just a massive bookstore. You sign up for free, you get a library card, you go, you borrow books, you read the book and you return it. I just think it is the best concept ever. And yeah, it actually baffled me that so many people, when I'm like, yeah, the library, and they're like, I never even thought to do that, because books are so expensive too. That's like another note. Bookstores, some books are like $30, and if I'm reading 100 books a year, no way can I afford that. And yeah, again, place to store them, you don't have to worry. Just I get out a few books at a time, I read them and I return them. So yeah, I just think if you are a fellow reader and if you've been spending all this time buying books, go find your local library, sign up, and thank me later. So I think that is where I am going to end things for our first episode today. I hope that this all sounds somewhat put together. This is so new to me. I have recorded so many demo episodes, and if you're listening to this, that means I finally got the courage and I actually posted it and it's actually out into the world. And yeah, as I said, I'm honestly just so excited. I've wanted to do this for so long, and I can't wait to hear your feedback and get suggestions of things you want to talk about and all that. And yeah, I am going to sign off and I will talk to you in the next episode.